谢谢大家，很欢迎你们来参加这个群众大会。我先用一些中文跟福建话先跟你们解释一下子。我们乌鸡巴都这个区很多老人家，真啊多老人家对不？我伫80岛伫大摆150碰到很多，那个阿伯甲阿姆，阿姆为这真啊可爱，他们很欢迎我们去，每次会跟我们握手，跟我们聊天一下子。然后那天就有一个记者，他问我说：“哎，你感觉怎么样啊？你是那个 anti killer， 你感觉怎么样？”哇，我看你们搞错啊！我 anti killer， 我现在自己也是安哥了嘞。我不是 anti killer 啦，我现在是阿姆 killer。但是呢，我只要最重要的代志，想甲人提出来。即阵，咱新加坡的老人家过日无简单。在2014年迄阵，126个老人自杀。从2000年到2014年，跳了60%。你好好听对不？126个，伊有无一日、3日一个老人来自杀？海峡时报他有讲，他们有访问一些老人家，他们有一个85岁的阿伯，他说：“我一个人，无人顾我，我的隔壁2个自杀，无人知。伊讲味素臭臭，才人发现。我莫安尼款死，我老了，我死迄阵，我爱人知。我人来这边乌鸡巴肚几个礼拜尔，就2个老人自杀。咱安怎安尼款呢？安怎老人家爱有出去的艰苦，找无路行，咱无变，就要自杀。穆拉里先生伊讲，我爱照顾咱老人家。我想讲，伊讲伊只知道16年对无？伊16年，伊等到补选来了，伊就讲伊爱顾老人家。你听了有淡薄奇怪无？伊16年迄阵，安怎无做啥物物件咧？互咱老人家管你艰苦咧，管你受苦咧，爱自杀咧？我甲你讲，伊无办法做啥物物件诶，因为咧，毋是伊做部长，伊无做部长，无做政府。你想看 ，PAP 对咱老人家，我有阿毛话我有这个有群众大会，我有来讲了。咱古早讲咱老人家讲，伊电梯无大楼有停的对无？伊讲甲政府讲，我人爬楼梯啦，脚疼，你会使讲，咱的电梯。甲人起会使大楼停的无 ？PAP 讲啥物咧？你投我票，我才做好了。即期的政府，即期的话伊会讲， 这个行动党政府，你莫听人讲较多，伊人真诶是无咱老人家诶心。但是咱也是讲，咱诶国会无较侪反对党，无民主党，伊诶政府袂听咱诶话，袂听咱人民诶话。若是咱诶国会有较侪人反对党，政府诶态度会变诶。我如果当选，当578度的国会议员，我一定会进入国会，替你们斗争，替我们老人家出声发言，跟阿伯阿姆，跟他们讲，说他们年轻的时候辛辛苦苦工作赚钱，到我们今天，我们的国家这么成功，有今天，让那个政府，让这个行动党来说，哇，我们多好，我们的经济弄得这么好。但是呢，他现在这个老的时候呢，他们像 tissue paper， 用完了就把它丢一边，为啥要你款呢？我们的态度，对老人家的态度要改变。我要跟我们老人家也是讲，说政府有责任，政府有责任，他们给你们比较享受的时候，不是送你礼物的，是他们应该给你的。我也是要跟老人家，我一直听说，哎呀，新加坡的老人家他们比较支持行动党。行动党这么欺负你们，他们就每次就想说，哎呀，无变啦，我有囝有给我淡薄钱，一个月200-300块，有够用，淡薄艰苦的，有鸡食鸡，无鸡食咸，一日去楼骹夹一盘饭，叫淡薄菜，叫一淡薄肉，食安尼款刷去。我是要甲你讲。咱唔爱直直爱靠你人的囝，你的囝有家己的囝顾，你的孙爱顾。如果有一天他们被裁员的时候，那怎么办呢？所以我要跟你们讲，我们578度的老人家讲，说不要继续那样再一直支持行动党偷他们的票。你们要知道，说你们要支持。这次有机会投我们行动党的票，让我进入国会来替你们出声，替你们发言。所以大家希望你们到处，如果他们老的一辈，他们觉得来这里不方便，我希望说你们回去的时候，如果你有听，跟你爸妈讲，叫他们。不要再投行动党的票，投民主党的票，支持民主党，这个是一个很好的机会。支持民主党，投我们的票。谢谢大家，感谢了，谢谢，谢谢大家。Thank you, everyone. Hello, Bukit Batok. Hello, Singapore. A very good evening to all of you here at the Industrial Park. And to the thousands more who are watching this rally online at home. We're into the 7th day of the by-election and more than a month since we started the campaign to spread the message of building a better town here in Bukit Batok. The schedule has been punishing, but we're feeling very excited and upbeat as we head into this last stretch of the campaign. Tonight, I want to elaborate a little more about our program, Hearts for Bukit Batok, which I talked about at the last rally, and which I believe will greatly benefit the residents of the town. Now, Bukit Batok is a mature estate. with a large segment of the population made up of the elderly. Nowadays, however, the elderly in Singapore are going through a very tough time. There has been a steady increase in the number of older people committing suicide. In the year 2000, 79 seniors committed suicide. In 2010, the number jumped to 95. In 2014, 120 elderly people killed themselves, an increase of 60% from 2000. In other words, one elderly person commits suicide in every 3 days in Singapore. Last month, the Straits Times reported that the elderly are increasingly afraid of dying alone, with nobody knowing. An 85-year-old man said, "I am alone. There is no one to take care of me. 2 of my neighbors died, and people found out only because of the smell. I don't want to die alone. I don't want the same thing to happen to me. I'm in my old age already, and when I die, I want someone to know." Now, social workers say this problem will only get worse. Many of these problems are created by PAP policies. For example, some elderly people are forced to downgrade their flats so that they can get some income. The problem is that when they do, they often have to uproot from their community which they may have lived for decades and move to an entirely new neighborhood. They could be displaced from their families and friends, and for the elderly, this is very traumatic. Does this government really understand the plight of our elderly? There have been 2 elderly suicides since just in the few weeks since our campaign started here in Bukit Batok. These have not been reported. I don't think so. We found these out as we were walking the ground. Why does it have to be this way? Why do our elderly have to live such kinds of misery and die, or worse, kill themselves in loneliness and fear? Mr. Murali says he wants to focus on the poor and the elderly. Hang on a minute. If Mr. Murali says he's been here for 16 years, then why? Why is he expressing concern about the elderly poor only in the last 6 weeks when the by-election was called? Surely he could have done something for the poor and the elderly here in Bukit Batok in the time that he says he's been here. The truth is that there's very little he can do about the plight of our elderly, because it is the policies of his party that has caused our elderly to live such miserable lives. This must change. We must take better care of our elderly. We must raise the quality of life for our elderly folk, starting with our residents here in Bukit Batok. As your MP, I will see to it that our older folks get the life and the respect they require and deserve. Ape, Pachi, Machi, when you were young, you worked just as hard, if not harder than any of us, and you contributed to our nation's development, just like us. When you become old, your government cannot just put you to one side. The PAP cannot treat you like tissue paper, use you, and then throw you away after it uses you. No. We must take care of our elderly better, if only because one day we will become old ourselves. I will tackle this issue on 2 fronts. First, as I explained earlier, we will implement our initiative Hearts for Bukit Batok and raise awareness among the residents to help the elderly poor in our constituency. And it's just not money that we're talking about. It's the quality of life, the day-to-day existence that the elderly go through that needs to be considered too. They need interaction and activity, both physical and mental, to keep mobile, to keep active. And we will be organizing programs and getting the help of volunteers through our Hearts for Bukit Batok program, such as organizing bingo nights, mahjong mornings, gardening, and so on. These activities will help to fill the lives of our older residents. and give them something to look forward to when they wake up every morning. Second, I will raise this issue in Parliament, and I will raise this issue in Parliament again and again and again and again until the government increases the budget for assistance for our elderly and provide more care for elderly Singaporeans. I want you, our elderly residents, to lead a full life and not have to constantly worry about who is going to take care of you. You need to lead more independent lives instead of having to rely on your children for support, because they have their own young children to look after, and they cannot afford to look after 2 generations in the family. The government must do its part. As your MP, I will do my part to push for programs that will pay more attention to your needs. And one of the big attractions of our Hearts for Bukit Batok is to facilitate residents in the constituency adopting a family from the lower income group, of which many are scattered throughout the town. Now you may think that this program is to help the needy. Yes, it does. But that's only one part of it. It is also to help families who provide the assistance. That is, the givers. I'm a strong believer in the adage, it is better to give than to receive. And I am sure that there are many of you who feel the same way. When we give, we reinforce the idea that we are one in the world. This is why in whatever religion we practice, to whichever faith we subscribe to, be it Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and so on, we are called to serve by helping those, especially the weak and poor among us. This is the core tenet of many religious teachings. It is what makes us human. Humans are selfish, yes, but we can also be capable of much kindness and compassion. Whether we orientate ourselves towards selfishness or selflessness depends very much on leaders of the community. If the MP in Bukit Batok can foster and cultivate a community that emphasizes on giving and helping those around us, then I believe this will be the beginning of something special, something we can be truly proud of as a community. I want the residents and community of Bukit Batok to adopt a different attitude and outlook. I want to be that enabler, the facilitator of a more compassionate, more giving society. I believe the MP can be that spark to ignite the generosity of spirit latent in all of us. I want to be such an MP. Another initiative that we have proposed in our social program is called the Dollars and Cents Project. Retrenchments are coming thick and fast with the economic downturn. It's going to get worse, much worse, ladies and gentlemen. What happens when you get retrenched? And I'm not just talking about the lower wage workers. I'm talking about our professionals and managers and engineers and technicians. Ask our shipyard workers, our factory managers, our shop sales staff. As our ship industry are rocked by oil price crash, our factories relocate and our shops and our shopping malls close down one by one. I don't care if you're a sales assistant or the sales manager. When the economy is as bad as it is now, your job is not safe. And when you find yourself laid off, what do you do? What do you do when you're called into your boss's office and told that you don't have to come in tomorrow because your company is downsizing? How do you prepare yourself and your family for such a scenario? Your income all of a sudden dries up, but you still have to pay your housing loan, your children's school expenses, your PUB bill, buy food for your family. Unexpected layoffs cause severe strain on the entire family with serious social repercussions. Even though the income stops, the bills don't. Our Dollars and Cents program, headed by Mr. Tan Kin Lian, will be able to help you plan ahead. You cannot find a more qualified professional to head our team because Mr. Tan is currently the president of the Financial Services Consumer Association and former CEO of NTUC Income. Dollars and Cents will be in program to provide financial guidance to help those of you who find yourselves in financial difficulties. In addition, and for the longer term, I will push for the retrenchment insurance scheme for our retrenched workers. Here's what we propose. If a worker is retrenched, the scheme pays her or him 75% of his last drawn salary for the first 6 months, and 50% for the second 6 months, and 25% for the final 6 months if he still hasn't found a job. The payout stops once the individual is re-employed or 18 months after retrenchment. The payout is capped at the prevailing median wage, which is about $4,000 a month right now. In other words, a retrenched employee earning, say, $3,200 a month would be paid $2,400 for the first 6 months a month, $1,600 a month for the next 6 months if he still hasn't found a job, and $800 a month for the final 6 months. But an employee who earns, say, $10,000 a month will receive $3,000 for the first 6 months, $2,000 a month for the second 6 months, and $1,000 a month for the final 6 months because of the median cap. And the Ministry of Manpower will then assist the retrenched worker to seek re-employment and help match his or her skill and salary level to a new job where possible. And the individual can reject only up to 3 job offers. Now, such a job is meant to provide temporary and limited assistance to retrenched workers to tide them through the difficult time until they find another job. Employees, while you are still working, pay a small amount each month, which will be deducted from your CPF, and the government will foot the remainder of the bill. Now, the PAP says that such a scheme would breed a welfare state mentality and bankrupt our economy. This is not true, because leading global economic powerhouses like Germany and the Scandinavian countries all have such retrenchment schemes. Asian economies like Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong also have retrenchment insurance policies. Do any of these economies look like welfare states to you? We can take the best practices of these economies and adapt them for our use here in Singapore. Even economists at the Institute of Policy Studies at NTU, and even PAP MPs agree with our proposal to introduce such a scheme. If elected, I will continue to push for this policy to help retrenched workers. Mr. Murali says, but he prefers to focus on helping you find re-employment. Yes, I know. I want to do that too. But unfortunately, he's not the trade minister, or he's not the minister for manpower. In fact, it is his party that is not creating jobs for Singaporeans. In all of last year, the government created only 100 jobs. Yes, you heard it right. 100 jobs for citizens and permanent residents. That means 1 job per constituency. Voters of Bukit Batok, only 1 job was created per constituency. How many of you here in Bukit Batok think you're going to fight for that 1 job if and when you're retrenched? And Mr. Lee Hsien Loong then in his May Day rally on Sunday said that the PAP system is better He said, and I quote, "So why not take advantage of the schemes paid for by the government to get yourself employed instead of staying unemployed? Please support us and upgrade yourself. Make yourself employable." Unquote. Yes. And then we all live happily ever after. The end. Please upgrade yourself and make yourself employable. Now, why didn't we think of that? You mean we just paid him $2.5 million a year so that Mr. Lee can now tell us to upgrade ourselves and make ourselves employable? I can hear Singaporeans say, "Who don't know? Like that I also can." If you create only 100 jobs a year and thousands are retrenched, then no matter how you upgrade yourselves, what are the chances of you finding re-employment? And the PAP continues with its foreign workers policy, I beg your pardon. We keep upgrading ourselves and the government keeps bringing in foreign workers who may not necessarily have better skills, but who are cheaper. How do we compete like this? Now, ladies and gentlemen, you may still have a job now, but you never know when you are going to get retrenched. Don't wait until you get called in and told that you have been laid off before you start thinking about having someone to fight for retrenchment benefits for you. By then, it'll be too late. If elected, I will work with WP MPs and even PAP MPs who want to see retrenchment entitlement for workers. Why not? When we are elected to serve the people, and MPs should work together for the good of the people instead of constantly bickering whether we belong to this party or that party. I will propose a retrenchment insurance scheme bill, and I will work with fellow MPs to try to pass the bill. My friends, what I have just told you is something that you must listen carefully, because this affects you if you are studying now and entering the job market soon, or if you're working at the moment, or if you are parents with children who are about to graduate. I ask you all to listen carefully, because this will affect your children's lives too. If you vote for the wrong person, for the wrong reason, and he goes into parliament and he will not speak up for you on this issue, your future is in a lot of trouble. This is a by-election, and it's the perfect opportunity to send me into parliament to speak up for you and your children or your grandchildren on this issue. Now, even for those of you who remain employed and know that you will continue to remain employed, my next question to you is, how sure are you that you will be able to retire? A few weeks ago, I was at the coffee shop in block 207. It's just across the road from here. And I was talking to a retiree. He was retrenched a few years ago because of the crash in oil prices. And he couldn't get back his savings because of the minimum sum scheme. He said he went to see Mr. David Ong, but there was nothing the MP could do for him. Recently, there was a Mr. Fan Pang Chia. You may have read about him in a letter that he wrote to the Today newspaper, pointing out that the CPF board had informed his wife that she would be able to start withdrawing a monthly payout from a CPF account when she hit 64. The CPF added that with her retirement account balance, the the balance can last her another 64 years. Now, then Mr. Fan asked the government, why would his wife need her retirement account to last until the age of 128 when the oldest Singaporean ever lived was 115 years old? This is the kind of unthinking government, unthinking policy that we have. If you want to be generous. But if you want to be suspicious, then you have to ask whether the government is withholding our CPF money because it doesn't have enough funds to pay us all back because of its failed investments. A few weeks ago, the Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank released a study which said that the cost of living makes Singapore one of the toughest countries to retire in. Nearly half of Singaporean pre-retirees say that they will not be able to retire in the next 5 years. The global average is only 38%. Singapore is 50%. 30% say that they will never be able to retire fully. 30%, compared with 18% globally. Now, respondents said that the problem is the lack of savings or the burden of having dependents to look after. Now, the head of HSBC said that the financial realities make retirement impossible for Singaporeans. And yet, because of the CPF scheme, we are the biggest savers in the world in terms of our retirement. How is it that despite this, we still don't have enough to retire on? What went wrong? I'll tell you what went wrong. The government has driven us to use our CPF money to buy our HDB flats. It then jacks up HDB prices so that we have to use more and more of our CPF to buy our homes. Now, what once belonged to you in your CPF account has now gone to the government. The government then takes these funds and goes around the world to invest them. Now, with hundreds of billions of dollars at its disposal, the world will roll out the red carpet. But remember, this is not the government's money. It's your money. Now, this has left Singaporeans with little disposable income for retirement, as I said. And the little that we have left, after paying off our flats, the government now wants to retain it under the minimum sum scheme and tells us that it will then return it to us in bits and pieces. Now, in another study, and this one by Credit Lyonnais Securities Asia, and I mentioned this at the last GE, it was found that 50%, mind you, 50% of our households in Singapore have little or no savings. That means you're talking about the middle class right now. These families subsist from paycheck to paycheck and, quote, leave them unable to cope with unexpected financial expenses, unquote. If a mishap should befall you, you and your family are but one major medical bill away from financial ruin. Accidents, as you know, can happen anytime to anyone. Very few people have asked necessary questions about our CPF and our reserves, but there is one expert who studies what sovereign wealth funds do. His name is Chris Balding, Professor Chris Balding from Peking University. Singapore sovereign wealth funds are GIC and Temasek. GIC is chaired by PM Lee Hsien Loong, and Temasek is run by his wife, Madam Ho Ching. Professor Balding has pointed out 3 problem areas with our sovereign wealth funds in particular Temasek Holdings. The first is that Temasek Holdings says that its average annual return is 16% for 40 years. The problem is that Singapore's global stock returns average only 8% or less during this period. How does Temasek make such a claim? Second, Singapore has become one of the most indebted countries in the world. This is despite the government telling us that it runs large surpluses on a regular basis. Professor Balding examined the publicly available data and concludes that there is about $800 billion that is unaccounted for from historical surpluses and financing operations when the claimed interest is factored in. Third, Professor Balding says that the returns claimed by Temasek and GIC cannot be reconciled. I know that it's hard to follow all these financial terms and figures, and frankly, you don't have to. I don't understand much of it either. But what you do need to understand is that it is enormously important that we know what is happening to our reserves, because a large part of this is our CPF funds. If anything happens to these reserves, I don't care how rich or how poor you are, whether you live in the Jade or the Dew or in Block 210A, you and I and the whole of our economy and our country is going to go down the drain. As it is, we don't know what is going on with our CPF reserves. But we do know one thing. The government continues to not want to return us back our savings by raising the minimum sum, which the government will retain even after we retire. And then it keeps raising our retirement age from 62 to 65, and soon it'll be 67. The CPF withdrawal age will keep going up too. Do we even know what is happening to our reserves? Has the government incurred huge losses in failed investments and cannot pay us back, and then come up with a scheme to retain our money? Remember, the CPF money is our money, as I said. The PAP is not doing us a favor by giving it back to us. We are entitled to get back our savings. Get me into Parliament to find out what is going on with our reserves. I will call for the accounts to be made public and for a team of experts to comb through the numbers to see why there is all this uncertainty in the claims made by the GIC and Temasek Holdings. We cannot remain so uninformed about the state of our reserves. The PAP is already the government. Now is the time to put in Parliament someone who will ask the tough questions, the right questions on your behalf. Now, the other day, a lady resident asked me, what plans are there for the middle class? We have made plans for the poor and the elderly, but nothing for the sandwich class. My response to her is that the best proposal I can give her is to fight for her retrenchment benefits if she gets retrenched, and to free up her CPF savings for her retirement. Now ask yourself this one important question. Do you think Mr. Murali, if he is elected, is going to Parliament and question his party bosses these questions about the GIC and Temasek, and to fight to have your CPF savings returned to you and for retrenchment benefits for you? Now, dear voters of Bukit Batok, these are serious matters that affect not just you, but your children as well. You make the wrong choice and elect the wrong person, and when things start to happen, you will find that you won't have anyone to speak up for you in Parliament. While you have this opportunity, make the right choice. Now, the PAP tells you that I have a bad character, and you shouldn't vote for me. And that's all they've been saying for these past several days. One by one, the ministers have popped up to take shots at me. Every single one of them attacking me very personally and very viciously. But I don't care. Unlike the PAP, I want to appeal to the good sense and good hearts of you, the Bukit Batok voters. I don't want to see politics become so poisonous. I've seen how it can ruin countries. And if we continue down this path, we will tear our country apart. If I have to play so dirty, to be so destructive and tear down my opponent so badly in order to win, then no, leave me out of it. Then I don't want to win. As I said before, if I win, I want to win with honor. If I lose, I want to lose with grace. On Saturday, no matter who wins, I want to wish all the residents in Bukit Batok the very best. You deserve nothing less. If you choose Mr. Murali as your MP, I will respect your wishes. And I will continue to serve you in whatever way I can. I'll give you an example of what we mean by having the Bukit Batok's residents at heart. And on this, I want to address Mr. Murali directly. For example, Mr. Murali, you just announced that you want to start a student mentorship program for Bukit Batok. Even though it sounds suspiciously similar to our Pathfinder program, I welcome it. If I don't get elected and you do, then I look forward to you implementing this program. Because at the end of the day, my foremost concern is that the youth in Bukit Batok get the kind of attention they need. And regarding personal attacks, right from the word go, when I learned that you were going to be the PAP candidate, I accorded you my utmost respect. I did not do it because you were a lawyer, or because you were rich, or because you are the chairman of a PAP branch. I did it because you are a fellow human being. I've asked my colleagues in the SDP not to attack you and your person, and I think we have kept our word. But sadly, even though Mr. Tharman gave us his promise, your party colleagues have broken the promise repeatedly. They have attacked me in the most personal and vicious of ways, even resorting to using made-up newspaper headlines. Now, even though I may not agree with you and your political views, I've asked and ensured that our campaign does not attack you personally. I ask that you do the same with your campaign and ask Lee Hsien Loong, Goh Chok Tong, Halima Yacob, Tan Chuan Jin, Grace Fu, and others to stop engaging in such dirty politics. I'm in charge of my campaign. If you are in charge of yours, you will ask your colleagues to stop the nonsense. And just as I've made sure that the SDP's campaign remains clean and focused on what Bukit Batok residents care about, please ensure that yours does the same. I say this because I want to use this opportunity to appeal to the best side of our people. Politics can be used to divide, or it can be used to unite us. As leaders, we have the responsibility to ensure that we use politics for the good of our nation. I ask the PAP to have foresight, not win the battle in Bukit Batok and then lose the war for Singapore. Our country cannot afford that divisiveness. I have only seen you, my friends in Bukit Batok, as my friend, my fellow citizen, whom I want to help and speak up for. If you support me, it is because I am someone who has earned your support. Someone who has worked for 25 years to earn your trust. Not someone who can buy your vote, not someone who can give you more and more of what you want, and certainly not someone who feels entitled to be your MP. In the past weeks, I have met many of you. I have chatted with you. I have laughed with you. And I've even sung Chipaban with you. Whether you are Chinese, or Malay, or Indian, or Eurasian, many of you have expressed your support for me. And for that, I am grateful. I have shaken your hands, and I have looked you, and you have looked me in my eyes and say you support me. It's not because you see me as Chinese or Malay or Indian. It's because you see me as someone who cares what happens to you and what happens to Singapore, regardless of the color of my skin or yours. You support me because you see me as someone who wasn't here just 6 weeks ago, but someone who started this journey 25 years ago. Someone who stumbled many times along the way, was knocked down many times, but got up each and every time and pressed on. You saw me as someone who was so tired and so weary during many parts of the journey, and who was so tempted to give up, but never did. You see me not as a hero, but as an ordinary guy who lives like you in a 3-room SDP flat. Who goes through what you are going through. And because of this, also see someone who understands, really understands what you mean when you say you are hurting, and that you want someone to speak up for you in Parliament. The PAP continues to attack my character. They've called me all sorts of names: cheat, liar, gangster, traitor, psychopath. They've sacked me, jailed me, sued me, and made me a bankrupt. But I'm still standing. The taunts, the insults, the punishments, the attacks have been unrelenting. But I do not bow to those who mock me, nor will I bend to those who attack me. I will not kneel before them, because one cannot stand up for one's principles, for one's beliefs, for one's people on bended knees. As long and as hard as the struggle has been, I walk with my head held high. I can do this because it doesn't matter who the PAP says I am. What matters is God knows who I am. My wife and my children know who I am. And most important, I know who I am. And because that which does not kill you makes you stronger, I have grown stronger with every attack. But as my children grow older and they begin to understand what's being said about their father in the newspapers and on TV, I want to tell them this. Anlin, Elin, and Shoha, as you watch this rally at home, I want to tell you that there are many things in life that I want to teach you as a father. But the most important lesson that I can impart to you is that we don't ruin others in order to rise up. We don't step on others' dreams in order to fulfill ours. And we don't ridicule others for not being like us. Instead, we lift up our friends. We extend a hand to strangers, and we forgive our enemies. We do what is good so that others may see the goodness in our hearts and want for themselves what they see in us. That is character. And I want you never to forget this lesson. My friends, don't vote for Mr. Murali because you believe what his colleagues say about me. Or don't vote for me because I'm Chinese. Vote for me because you have met me, because you have talked to me. Vote for me because you know who I am, because you are proud of me. And I want you to be proud of your MP, to say with pride that I am from Bukit Batok and my Chee Juan is my MP. Not because I'm smarter, not because I'm richer, not because I'm more powerful, but because you know that you have a friend, someone who cares about what happens to you, and someone you know who stands by you and struggles with you and wakes up every day to fight for you. Thank you. Good night, my friends.
Thank you, Dr. Chee. The man himself. Give it up.
谢谢徐顺全博士。我们要一场干净的选举，我们也要一场有骨气的选举。
We've got a supporter here who wishes to present a bouquet of honor.
这里一位支持者将为徐顺全博士献上花环。
And Ms. Jesslyn Goh will present a bouquet of flowers on behalf of another supporter.
另外还有一位支持者，他也献上了一束花。
What is the time? What is the time? What is the time? Dr. Chee! Dr. Chee! Dr. Chee! Give some big round of applause!
Ladies and gentlemen, vote for Dr. Chee.